So that allows us to now look at some details that are a little bit more interesting. So in this process, we're going to look the at the last example, which is really a simple articulation of the right side. And the reason we do that is because this is an interiors class. And one of the things I want you to understand is that a two-point perspective has a bearing on interior design and architecture. Some spaces that you'll work on may include, especially if you're in hospitality, you may be working on garden spaces, which work very well with a two-point perspective because we're adding on to a building, and we're going to see how the building exterior form works with the two-point perspective, and we're adding in those components that have to do with interiors or interior treatments. So we're gonna do a little bit of modifications here to the right hand so that we can see inside this object. Now I haven't erased all my lines here. They're helpful, but we're going to go and erase them and clean them up as part of the last bit of this demonstration video. So as I move forward, I'm going to change up my instructions so I can kind of be methodical about this. Okay. All right. Again, we have all our lines that we need here. What we want to do is we want to align this top of wall or eave line where the wall meets the roof, and we want that to be the same top of wall or opening for this new object. We've already drawn that in, but let's repeat where that came from. After we found the halfway point, we were able to extend a vertical line up from the lower portion of the main object or main building to the second, or not second floor, but the upper exterior wall, and that's created this vertical line intersection. With that in place, we know that that becomes the transition of slope between the vertical wall and the sloped roof. We're going to call that an eave line for lack of a better term. And we're going to extend that same idea that the eave line is the lineup of the roof and the intersection of the roof slope and the upper wall line that's provided here. We're going to extend that out, and remember, this is on the left side, so it's going to project to the left vanishing point. So as we've done in the past, we're simply projecting this line down to the vanishing point, and there it is. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to make sure that this lower floor element is also projecting to the right location. So that's provided right there. We can see the alignment occurs. I'm going to back this off just a bit. And as we do that, we can see the line occurs right here and goes all the way through to the left vanishing point over here. So we have the top of the opening already provided, and we have the bottom of the opening provided. So what we really want to do here is provide some simple measurement criteria, and what that is basically that we want the opening. We've got a top and we have a bottom, but this is just a edge. What we now want is a thickness to that. So that thickness we want to be, as measured, just 1/4 inch. So we measure from the leading corner back 1/4 inch, and that's going to finish out what that opening requirement is here. So I'm going to draw a vertical line. Remember, all verticals are vertical. And I can now erase some of this to create a little bit more of an illusion of this element. I'm going to go ahead and take some of this information off here too, because I think it gets a little confusing. We'll leave the bottom one on as a broken phantom line. Okay, so I'm going to also clean up some of the back walls here because they're just they represent the outer edge, and we're going to end up with an inner side that needs to be considered. Okay, we're almost done. So I've tried to create some phantom lines here that give us boundaries without necessarily creating a visual conflict in what we're trying to see. So I'm going to draw I'm going to just go back over this piece right here real quick to make sure that it is easily observed and seen by the camera here that's positioned over the drawing. And that way we can see the forms just that much better. Okay, almost there. Okay, so as we've mentioned before, we have this object here on the right, this addition on the right, and we can start to see, one more line here, we can start to see this object as having more than just a facade, more than just a veneer of skin. We've added in, we have a thickness of a roof line or a top, we have a thickness of the floor, and we have a thickness of the wall here. So hopefully you see that. Now, as we proceed from here, what we want to do is we want to identify that the object that is provided, or this element on the right, has thickness throughout the entire interior piece. And so that is found by extending the same thickness that we have applied here to the inside that we're seeing provided here. So we're gonna use some light lines. Be careful with these. Be observant of them, because they are it can get a little bit confusing. So just take your time. We'll do this slowly, and you can see how we build this information. So starting with the floor, we're going to extend a line from that indicates the inside of this space back to the back wall. Okay, so that's just a thin line across there. It's not really easy to see it, but it is. You can start to see where the thickness is occurring there. Now, to find the thickness relative on the back side of this, because remember, this wall inside here is just a veneer. It's just a thin representation of a skin. We want to add a little bit of thickness in there, so we need that to be represented as well. So we've projected this wall. Now we're going to project the thickness on the back wall. And that's going to, we're going to eyeball that just a little bit here. It could be more precise, but in this exercise, I think it's okay to make it about 1/8 of an inch off the back wall. That's that dimension there, plus or minus. It could be a little bit less, it could be a little bit more, but we just want to make sure that it's provided. I'm going to switch these around just a bit. Okay. Slide that up. Yep, that'll work. Okay. So what you see here is I'm come out about 1/8 of an inch this way, give or take some, just to give me some thickness, and I've projected back to the left vanishing point so that it's in the right plane and it's in the right position. So what we're seeing here now is a interior wall that's following this point. It gets to this point right here where the two lines intersect, and then that will represent a very light line, and it does also represent what I'll say, a hypotenuse or a diagonal cut through that corner. It's cutting from this point to this point in a triangulated way. So we're going to do the same thing at the top. We can take this line and extend it with some thickness out, projecting it away from, let's bring it out here. Bring that over. Okay. All right, so it's lightly represented, and it comes up to a point here also. What that does for us is that gives us a line inside the building at both positions. And again, we're starting to get a little bit fussy. I don't want to spend too much time on this inside piece because we don't really get a good view, and we'll see more of this in one-point perspectives in about a week or two. But at this point, I wanted you to see that we have applied a thickness here, and that thickness we need to start defining some edges. One of the things that you should observe is that if this has a flat ceiling in it, right now we're not saying it does, but if this main object has a flat ceiling that lines up with this edge, then this piece right here is a continuous surface that extends through. And so the line that we extend from the top, let me make sure that we're doing this correctly here, will actually be the line that becomes the back wall, interior wall of the object of the main structure. And here's the lower portion of that same line. So I can make sure we're lined up again. I should use my bigger triangle next time. Okay. And it extends on in this way. So now, if I'm doing this correctly, and it's extending through inside the house, we're not gonna worry about this back piece because it gets even a little bit more complicated at this point. We're just going to finish it off with this and say that this is the floor, and remember, these are flush and these are flush, so they just become one ceiling. Be careful with those phantom lines so you don't get in the way here. Okay, so we used the base, we used the top, we found the thickness. The thickness extended back, we gave ourselves about 1/8 of an inch as a thickness of the wall, just so that we represented some wall thickness, and projected it back to the left vanishing point by going through that 1/8 inch marker and extending it back. And that provides us with this lower interior wall. Same approach was taken up above, where we extended the wall out about a little bit more than 1/8, and this one, because of the distortion of the drawing, we took it up closer to 3/16, not quite a quarter, and projected it back. And what that did is that gave us an interior wall. We removed the dividing line between the two because it's one ceiling. We did the same thing down below because it's one floor. And then this wall behind becomes one extended wall. So hopefully this helps you to see how we can articulate some interior conditions with some exterior two-point perspectives. So that pretty much concludes our demonstration on the two-point perspective. Please remember that this does not have to be finished up. You could just follow along with this video, draw this stuff up, and then I want you to upload it into Canvas. So that will include the need to scan it either with a large format scanner or just take a picture of it and use a PDF function on a smartphone, and that'll take care of it. I don't need it to be a final finished drawing. I just want you to have exercised and follow along with the video the requirements for a 2-point perspective. There is more coming along, and so we'll close this portion of the video. And with that, I will say stay tuned. We have one next portion of the assignments to do. Thank you, and we'll see you in just a bit.